Good morning, everyone. Right, this just a little. I'm going to go a bit deeper into the Wardley versus Clarke fight. I had a few comments in the comment section last night from Popcorn Boxing and a few others, sort of posing the question: is Fabio Wardley being found out? So let's have a look, shall we? Let's have a bit of a deep dive on this. Let's go on the fight on what we saw. So, firstly, Fabio Wardley. I wouldn't say found out. I would say his lack of experience and his lack of time in the game has been shown up, and it's been shown up against a guy who's in stark contrast, had a big amateur career, a long run through the amateurs, so a very good schooling, a very good pedigree. So it was always going to appear that way. When Fabio's lack of experience, and lack of finesse, shall we say, was going to be shown up in this fight because of the opposition he was facing. Let's talk about his defence, or lack of it, to start with. Now, Ben Davison said a funny thing after the fight. Well, not a funny thing, just I found it a little bit surprising. It was almost a disclaimer from Ben Davison saying, he was pleased with the performance, but essentially Fabio didn't listen to instruction, and that caused a lot of the problems. Fabio has this, he doesn't really have a stance defence, does he? His hands are held away from his face. And he doesn't really deal with shots. Everything that Frazer Clarke threw down the middle or straight or anything around the side landed. I mean, there were shots that weren't particularly fast, and it wasn't like Fabio was reacting late or his defensive technique wasn't good. There was no reaction at all. He would just stand there in that same stance, and the shots would land. It's a good job that Frazer Clarke isn't a bigger puncher, because at this point, if Frazer Clarke was a bigger puncher, that fight would have probably been over. And you guys know I'm a big Fabio fan, but we've got to look at the problem he's now going to face. As I said beforehand, this was the biggest step up for both guys in terms of quality and in terms of jeopardy in front of the pair of them. But as I said with Ben Whittaker and his style, that will only take him so far. You have to level the same at Fabio Wardley, because with no defence like that, in him with a bigger puncher. I said before, Frazer Clarke, decent puncher, not destructive puncher. Had Fabio been in there with a bigger puncher, he would have been out of there, unfortunately. And this is me coming from the stance of being a Fabio fan, but we've got to be objective, because he shipped a lot of punishment. I mean, we talk about the size of the fight in Fabio and the guts he's got. To hang in there to that degree with the amount of punishment he took at the hands of Frazer Clarke was heroic, beyond heroic, because there were times where I questioned towards the end whether he'd get up off the stool or whether he'd be let get up off the stool, but he did. But going forward, there are huge issues that need to be faced there, and that is the defence. That is the defence, because it is kind of non-existent, and you can only trade on guts and inner strength so far. It was one of the questions posed in the comments was, do we see Frazer Clarke as a sort of a player at the top end of the game, the elite level of the game, if you like? And I'd have to say, he impressed me. He impressed me far beyond what I expected from him. But if I look at him and I compare him against the guys at the top and whether he could make an impact at the top, looking at what I saw, I don't think he has the punch. He's got good skills, but I don't think he's got skills that are going to transfer up to the elite level and win him titles at the elite level, unfortunately. But as I said before, Fabio impressed me. I thought Frazer was fantastic. He showed bravery I didn't expect him to have, didn't think he had, wrongly on my part, because he showed everything. But if we're going to look at him at the top level, Frazer does a lot of things very well. He uses his jab very well. He's got good speed for a big man and an older man. There was one right hand I saw he threw, and it was that quick. It was kind of like it was a blow, you couldn't see it, and again landed home on Wardley. So he's got really good attributes, Frazer. I don't think they're good enough for the top. He did do well, and this is what I think made the fight go further and why he didn't get stopped by Fabio Wardley. We talk about position, and we talk about the way that Frazer kept his shape, and that applies in a large amount of areas. One of them was the fact that in keeping his shape, his chin is very well tucked. Most of the shots that Fabio landed were sort of top of the head, around the temple area, ear, forehead. He didn't really manage to catch Frazer that often, that cleanly on the chin, because Frazer holds his shape very, very well, and he kept his chin out of danger for the most part, very, very well. One of the things I want to talk about is the nose. Now, Fabio said the nose wasn't broken. I believe the nose wasn't broken, but there's an issue there with that nose. He says it's not broken. Kind of doesn't have to be broken, but one of the problems when you get a broken nose, or not even a broken nose, but when the nose bleeds profusely, that causes many problems. One is breathing through your nose. So when you breathe through your nose, you can't breathe, and when you do breathe in through your nose, you suck blood in, and that goes down your throat. Obviously, you all know that. But one of the reasons, the only sort of area where gum shields, or mouth guards are effective, you have to have the mouth shut and clenched to a degree. Without the gum shield, it's very dangerous to do that with teeth. But when you can't breathe through the nose, it's going to lead you having to the mouth open a certain amount of the time. And I know this is because this happened to me. When the mouth is open, you can be tapped with the softest of jabs on that jaw. That jaw will break quite easily. I got mine broke mouth open with a hook that wasn't even a lot behind the hook, but because the jaw was open and hanging and there's nothing to brace it, breaks very easily, very, very easily. So the nose causes sort of running on problems from having a broken nose or profusely blooded nose, because if you're then forced at times to, because it's very hard as well, almost impossible to breathe through your mouth with a gum shield in, you can't breathe clearly at all. So at some point you're going to end up with a mouth open, because otherwise you almost suffocation almost. So there are a lot of problems caused with a broken nose or badly bleeding nose, and that is one of them. Sucking in blood through your nose and down your throat, and then being led, the need to breathe through your mouth, and at some point, especially as you get tired and fatigued, the mouth will come open a little bit, and if you get tapped on that jaw with that mouth open, that jaw will break. No power needed. So when it comes to Fabio's guts, he was trading on pure heart and pure guts because he didn't have ability to trade on with Fraser Clarke. Fraser Clarke had far more ability, and that ability and experience saw Fraser Clarke through to the end, and Fabio's just guts and sheer will saw him through to the end because he didn't have the level of skills to trade on that Fraser had to trade on. So we had two really contrasting approaches and qualities that both men showed balls, obviously, but Fraser got there through his skills and his will. Fabio got there through his just sheer heart, balls and will, because on the skills department he was the far lesser man, wasn't he? Great fight. Sometimes, the thing with great fights, and I said this about Deontay Wilder, and in a certain degree in the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury fights, is that sometimes fights are only so good because the technical side is so poor, if that makes sense. So when we get the scares and the knockdowns and the wars and the clean headshots and the absolute wars of attrition, it's very much because of the skills have been lost to some degree in the heat of the battle. The defensive skills go out the window, the caution goes out the window, and that's generally what produces these, some of the greatest fights in history. Yes, you get the ones which are for the purists, which are absolute, sublime displays of pure boxing ability and boxing skill. But in general, the bloodthirsty stuff that we like, the bloodthirsty fights that we like, that we love, come about because kind of skills have been left at the door to some degree, and errors are made, and gaps appear and stuff like that. So. And this was kind of one of those, although, Fraser did keep his shape and keep his skills to the end. But essentially, the wars you get are because, technique and skill and game plan gets left at the door to some degree, and we end up with a war like we did there. So, yeah, going forward, a rematch has got to happen. It was interesting immediately after the fight because it was put to Fabio. Fabio sort of said, well, we may go there, but we may look elsewhere, which kind of an indication that maybe he wasn't set on doing that next. I don't know if any of you saw that. And then I saw an interview with someone, I think it was on Sky Sports, where he said, no, we'll do the return. He deserves a return. I think we need to return. I don't think either men can really go on without that question being answered, without that box being ticked. So we'll see. In terms of long term, look, guys, I've said many times before, I'm a huge Fabio fan, but there's going to have to be some major changes and some major advancements for Fabio to continue in that vein against a puncher, against a better. If you put Fabio in there now with someone sort of equal to Fraser Clarke, but a genuine puncher, he's in real trouble. He's in real trouble. Yes, he's also got the caveat that he could get the opponent out of there as well, but he's at a massive risk of getting stopped himself because of that lack of defence. It's hard to see, you know, I said in the preview video, it's hard to see how far Fabio can carry this, but it's going to be a great journey on the way. And I stand by that. But I do think we've seen that there's going to be real problems, you know, and he had real problems last night, but I mean fight losing problems for Fabio as he goes forward if we don't address this getting hit issue. You know, standing in front of someone with big balls is only going to get you so far, and at some point it's going to find you on the floor. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. We'll just look over the Florian Marku and Chris Kongo. That was a classic sort of combination of, although Florian Marku's got quite long arms, it was almost a classic combination of when you get the taller, longer, pure boxer and the shorter, squatter, walk forward pressure fighter. Now, if you are that squatter, shorter, walk forward pressure fighter, to have success with that technique, you've got to have a number of key areas where you are superb. One of them's got to be footwork and foot speed. The other one has got to be punch selection and timing. And the other one, you need a bit of power. And Florian Marku is lacking in a few of those. He walks in very square. He throws a jab or a double jab, but doesn't double the jab often enough. When you've got the guy on the back foot who's going to look to counter the squatter guy coming in with good use of the jab, you need to double up the jab. So that counter jab from the guy on the back foot becomes ineffective and makes him think even double the jab or step in and triple the jab. Marku never did that. It was a lot of single jabs, no invention, and very square. You can't do that with no upper body movement and no head movement, which Marku displayed. He was never going to win that fight. And Kongo, you know, fair credit to him, done really well. Kind of done everything you should do on the back foot, being that style and employing those tactics. So hats off to Chris Kongo. But what a great night of boxing. What a great night of boxing. Don't know what you guys think. It's always... it can always seem, and you can pull more things out of it, can't you, the next day once you watched it live and then had to go back to watch it again, which I didn't. I briefly watched the highlights. I've been busy, although I thought I'd come in the garden today because the sun's out. But yeah, any thoughts from you guys the day after? Any differences from what you thought on the night? The point deduction. Fraser Clarke said afterwards that he was warned once. No, I don't know about you guys. To me, it looked like the referee motioned 3. Fraser Clarke said he was warned once, and then the one he took the point from was really odd because it was to the side, almost landing around the hip area. This is another thing that a lot of people don't understand. The amount of broken hands that happen by never broke my hand, but I have done it, where you throw the body shot or the hook to the body and you hit the hip bone. That's not good. Yeah, that can really fuck your hands up. But the body shot that landed low that he took the point from, it was kind of to the side, almost to the hip kind of area, and it was really inconsequential. It was as they were going back to the ropes. There's nothing behind it, and there was no complaint from Fabio either. I think the complaint from Fabio came from after the referee had called it low and then broke. I'm not sure, but it was a very inconsequential shot to take the point off. So yeah, I found that quite strange. But anyway, there's some final thoughts. I'll see you all soon.